Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to my complete YouTube video editing masterclass. This is your one-stop shop guide to going from a complete noob who's never even opened a video editing software to pumping out high-quality YouTube videos that retain people and get views. And this masterclass is the real deal. There's no full paid course below. There's no school group to learn more advanced stuff. This is all the key fundamental video editing knowledge that'll help you put out some pretty damn good quality videos. We're covering everything from where to get copyright-free clips, sound effects, music to use in your videos, what editing software to use. Spoiler alert, it's free. How to use AI to get stuff done faster, and even a lesson where I literally sit down and edit an entire real YouTube video that's actually going live from start to finish and explain the decisions I'm making and edits I'm doing. But I also believe that knowledge without execution is useless. So on top of that, down below, I'm going to link to a completely free Discord server just for people going through my YouTube courses, where you can connect with other like-minded people and actually get feedback on your edits. So I'm super pumped to get into this. The last thing I'll say real quick though is obviously this took a lot of time and effort to pull together, and it wouldn't have been possible for me to do that and give this all for free if it wasn't for the sponsor of this video, Opus Clip. If you're making long form videos and want to automatically repurpose them, Opus Clip uses AI to automatically find the best moments in your video, clip them into shorts, add captions, add edits, and then even publish them directly to YouTube from their platforms. And we'll talk a bit more about them later. The last thing I'll say though, everything I'm going to show you in this is going to be step by step. I'm not just going to tell you to do things, I'm actually going to show you exactly how to do them. But that doesn't mean it's going to be easy. Anything worth doing is hard. Just like going to the gym. Intellectually, you might know the right technique, you might know the exercise you need to do, but if you don't actually commit and go and do it and put in the reps, all that knowledge is useless. So my ask to you right now is to commit to making this work. Commit to this video, commit to learning how to be a video editor if this is what you really want to do, because it can help you grow your own YouTube channel, maybe get other YouTubers as clients, or maybe you want to work as a video editor for other YouTubers, whatever it is. I really believe if you can nail video editing that actually retains people, the way the world's going right now, regardless of what happens, your skills are going to be in high demand. So with all that being said though, I'm going to shut up now. Hope you enjoy the content. First thing you're going to need to do, if you don't already have a video editing program, if you're using something like Premiere or one of the other common editing programs around, you'll still roughly be able to follow along with these tutorials. But I want to show you first and foremost what I think is the best free video editing software around. And we're talking best as in this is good enough to be used by professionals. Many professionals do use this even though it's free. And it's called DaVinci Resolve. So what you're going to do, we're going to go to Google, and what you're just going to type in is DaVinci Resolve. And then what you're going to click on is the link from DaVinci Resolve by Blackmagic Design. Now at the moment, as I'm recording this, DaVinci Resolve 19 is the latest sort of DaVinci out there. However, in the future, I'm pretty sure DaVinci Resolve 20 is going to be releasing soon, and then they go 21, 22. They usually every year or 6 months or so, they're going to release a new DaVinci Resolve, like a new version of it. But the good news is, even if you're watching this in the future, DaVinci Resolve is very similar. I've been using this since DaVinci Resolve like 15, I think. And every time a new one comes out, like I don't really have to relearn anything. All the buttons are the same. They're all in similar places. Like if there are changes, it's really minor changes. Like the button style looks slightly different, or maybe it was moved from like the left of the screen to the right of the screen, something like that. So even if you're using a future version of this, you will be able to follow along. Anyway, so you're going to click into DaVinci Resolve and you're going to scroll down and you're going to click on free download. I can't believe this is free. It's insane. And the one you're going to select is the one on the left, and then just select whatever option suits you best. So when you click on it, you'll be given a form like so that you'll be able to fill out. And once you fill out the form, you'll just hit register and download, and DaVinci Resolve will start downloading. Now, I've already done this. My Resolve is downloading here, as you can see. Once that's downloaded, I'm going to show you how to actually install it, and then we'll look at setting it up. So DaVinci Resolve is downloaded as a zip file. Now, what we're going to do is on Windows, I'm just going to right click and I'm going to go to 7-zip and I'm going to extract files. However you extract files is okay. And I'm just going to extract it to this folder like so. All right, so what we're going to do, come in here right now, and then we have the DaVinci Resolve application. So we're just going to double click on that and it's going to extract for us. All right, what we're gonna see now is this option pop up. What you're gonna do is just leave it on default. Don't feel like you need to check a Fairlight, just leave it on default. We're gonna hit install. This window will pop up here and we're just gonna hit next, accept the license, next, next, and install. All right, so now it's done. We're just gonna hit finish and hit OK. And now on your computer, you can see that DaVinci Resolve has been installed. So we're just gonna double click on this guy. So we're gonna hit continue on this guy when it pops up, and we're going to hit start here. Sometimes it'll ask you if you want a quick start or not quick start. I would just select the not quick start option and just open it manually. I'm gonna hit allow access. All right, we'll bring it across here. And now DaVinci Resolve 19 has loaded up. The first thing it's gonna load is this window, which will show you all of the projects that you currently worked on. So DaVinci has remembered some of my past projects that I've edited here, and you can see them all here, but your version is not going to have any of these. It's just gonna have one blank project called Untitled Project. But that's okay, because what we're gonna be doing now is creating new projects for you to edit in. So gonna come down to new project, click on this button, then you can name it. So we're just gonna go test project, hit create, and now we're gonna open up DaVinci. Now this is gonna look very overwhelming and scary at first. I remember feeling super overwhelmed when I first jumped into something like this, but it's okay. We're gonna go through everything step by step, and it's all gonna make a lot of sense soon. So the first thing you're gonna wanna do is actually go down to the bottom here, and we're gonna go to the edit tab, because we're going to be editing videos, and your tab is gonna change and look a little something like this. Now my edit tab actually looks a little bit different to what your default one will, because I've actually customized it a tad, but let me show you what it's gonna look like on default. And if you've used DaVinci Resolve and you wanna follow along step by step with this tutorial, like click by click, what you can do is go to workspace and then come down to reset UI layout and click on that, and it's gonna reset it back to the default UI layout, which looks like this. So let's do a quick tour. On the left hand side here, this space is called our media pool. This is going to be where we'll store the footage, video files, audio files, images, etc. that we are going to edit with. Over here on a little bit to the right of that, we're going to see a black sort of box with some play buttons down here. This is your preview window for your media pool. So when you add videos and clips into here, you're going to be able to watch them and preview them with this window. The window on the right is going to be your preview window for the actual editing that you're doing. So the one on the left here is just going to show you like media that you could potentially edit. The one on the right is going to show you the video that you're actually editing. And then down the bottom here, the part where you're going to be spending a lot of time is your timeline. This is going to be where you're actually going to be able to see the footage that you're editing and apply the edits and stuff to it. And again, if that sounds overwhelming, don't worry, we're going to walk through all of this step by step. And by the end of this, you're going to be an absolute master who creates high retention videos that will get a lot of views. So let's get some footage to actually edit. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to open up a folder, and I'm going to drag some footage. I'm just going to drop it inside of my media pool like this. So now what you can see is I have this thing inside my media pool, and if I hover over it, I can preview it in my preview window that we just talked about. And I can actually watch it. If I double click on this and then come over here and hit this play button, you can see that I'm actually talking and things are actually going on in here, right? And I can scroll around here and you can see all the different things changing. Now, you can add a bunch of different things, a whole heap of media in here. And then when you're ready to actually start editing, what you're going to do is you're going to grab the media, so click on it and click and drag it down here into your timeline. So now our media is inside of our timeline, and we can actually start doing some cool edits to it. Now, one quick thing I do want to highlight is for some people, if you have a slightly slower computer, this is where DaVinci is going to start lagging a bit for you. So one thing that I like to do, or one thing you can do to sort of make it less laggy when you're moving around your timeline playing back video, is go to playback, then go to timeline and playback resolution, and you can go down to half or quarter. What that's going to do is just going to make your footage here look like half quality or like quarter quality. So it's going to look a bit blurry, a little bit gross, but when you actually render the video and export it, it's going to go back to full quality. So essentially you'll be editing it and it'll look low quality, but then when you export it, it'll go back to high quality just to make your machine a little bit faster. Anyway, so we've got our footage now. Now what I want to show you real quick is just how to customize this view, because some of you might have smaller screens, larger screens. You might want to adjust how things look. So whenever you hover over an edge of sort of like a thing, you'll see these like arrow lines. What you can do, you can click and drag, and you can like make things smaller and larger. So let's, for example, say I wanted to make my timeline down here bigger so I can see more of it. I could grab it and drag it up. Now my preview window is going to be smaller and my timeline is going to be larger, right? Obviously I don't like that, so I'm going to bring that down. The other thing you can do is you can turn things off and on by clicking on them. So anything that's kind of highlighted like this is turned on. So what you can see right now is my media pool is turned on because I was using it. But once I've used my media pool, if I've added in all my media and dragged it into my timeline, I can just come up here and click on this. It's going to remove it so I can have more space to do my editing. And then if I want to go back and grab more clips, I can come to my media pool and click on that. That's going to be the same for every sort of effect or tab or whatever we open up inside of DaVinci. So later we'll talk more about these, but if I go to the effects tab or the index, or I want to open up the inspector, like I click on these, it's going to open them all, and then I can give myself more space by clicking on them again and just hiding them. So you can muck around with that, get this looking the way you want. And when it's looking the way you want, I'm just going to bring it back to the default just so it's simpler for you guys. Let's actually start playing around with some footage. So as we mentioned, the footage is in our timeline down here. Now we can play this footage and watch it back by going over to the preview window on the right hand side here and then hitting the play button. And you can also use this button here to like drag around the video, right? To navigate around it. However, most commonly, if you're going to navigate around your timeline, so like skip to a later part in the video or move to a certain part of the video so you can make a cut there or an edit, you're actually going to use your playhead. So you see this like red line thing down here? That is your playhead. And if you click on these little like ruler kind of looking things like this, you can see your playhead jumps to different places. Also, if I hit play on this video, you can see my playhead gradually moves. Basically, the playhead's showing you what part of the video you're currently at. So let's say I wanted to skip to, 1 minute 30. I can just click up here, my playhead's gonna jump there, and now I'm at 1 minute 30. Now, something else you might notice here, right? If I grab my playhead and I drag, you can see that I have a lot of footage here that isn't showing up just because it doesn't actually fit into the screen. So what you can do is come up here to this little plus and minus button, click minus, 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 and I can zoom all the way out. I can see my entire video just inside of my timeline. And if I want to make a particular edit at a certain point and I want to like zoom in on that point, I'm just going to select that point or find that point with my playhead. Let's say it's like halfway through the video, and I can just hit the plus button and zoom in on that particular part of the video. So that's how to install DaVinci, create a new project, add your footage, customize your workspace, and then actually navigate around your timeline so you can actually start editing. Now what we're going to do is look at how to actually start making edits. Now we know how to sort of navigate this whole timeline situation. So the most common thing in editing that you'll want to do is cutting, removing parts of a video. And cutting in DaVinci Resolve is quite simple. So let's say, for example, I'm going to go right to the beginning of my timeline. I can also use this little play bar here to navigate around, so I can drag that down. Let's have a look at this real quick. So I'm going to zoom in down here on my audio track, and I can click and drag and make this bigger as well, so it's easy to see. Remember we talked earlier about clicking and dragging. Can you see how these waveforms here that represent sound represent me talking in this particular video that we're editing? Can you see how the waveforms only start like here, and in the beginning of the video there's like 2 frames of silence? I might actually want to remove that silence so we get straight into the video, and like as soon as people click on it, I'm talking immediately as opposed to them having to wait like 2 frames. So what I would do is I can just move my playhead to that particular location that I want to make a cut, and then I'm going to come here to this little toolbar here, and I'm going to click on the razor tool. So I'm going to click on that, and what I do, you can see I can actually move my razor around it, and it creates like a little mini playhead. And when I click, it's actually going to make, and if I come back here and click on my arrow one just so I can navigate around my timeline again, you're gonna see it's like making this like little line through the footage. What that shows is that the footage has currently been cut. It's been separated into 2 different pieces. I've grabbed my arrow tool again. I could grab this part of the footage by clicking on it, actually drag it, and now you can see that I have 2 separate pieces of footage on my timeline. Now, as we talked about, I'm making this cut so I can separate the intro from the rest of the footage so I can delete it because there's a silence here that is unnecessary. So I'm going to click on this, we can right click, and then I can just hit delete selected, and it's going to delete it. Then I just click on my main video footage and drag it to the beginning, and now you can see that I've deleted, I've cut that little bit of silence at the beginning of my video, and now my video starts immediately as I'm talking. I am going to roast your thumbnails. And awesome. But you can actually do a lot more than just cut off the beginning or end of your video. You can cut out segments within your video. So let's scroll out for a second. Let's zoom out using these buttons. You can see there's like a patch of silence right here. Do you see that right there? That patch of silence might be there intentionally, but it most likely is like I've forgotten what I'm saying. So let's zoom in and actually have a listen to this and apply them regardless. So there's a big patch of silence here because I'm an idiot and I forgot what I was saying. So that obviously looks really bad in the video, and we're gonna actually want to cut that out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come grab my razor tool again, click on that, and I'm going to move it to the beginning of where I stop talking, which is here. I'm going to make a cut, and I'm going to move it to the beginning of where I start talking again. It's about here, make a cut, and now you can see I've separated this silence part, this part of footage I don't want. I'm going to right click on it, delete selected, and now you can see that I have removed that section of video from my footage. All I have to do now is I'm going to click on this part to the right, I'm going to drag it to the right until it like snaps, and now I've deleted that silence and people won't actually be able to see it, and it's just going to skip over. And apply them regardless. So, you see that? Pretty cool, hey? Cutting is the most fundamental thing you're going to be doing in editing. You're going to be removing certain boring or unneeded parts of your footage and cleaning up your video for the viewer. There is another way though to sort of remove footage at the end or beginning of a clip that a lot of us use all the time. So let's, for example, go to the very end of this video. So I'm going to zoom out, I'm going to go here, I'm going to zoom all the way in. Let's say we wanted to remove this whole section of video here. Now I could just come here, grab the razor tool, cut it, then I could right click on this and then go delete selected. I don't want to actually do that though. So I'm going to go Control Z to undo what I just did, and Control Z again to undo things. Go back to my arrow tool here. What I could do instead, because every time you have to make a cut, or at the moment, like the basic way we're doing it, is you have to come and select the razor tool and then make a click, right? That's like additional clicks. An easier way to do it is you can grab your arrow tool, just click and hover near the edge of the clip. Can you see how it makes these little like icons? And I'm gonna click and drag it in, like so. And what you can see is it's actually just cut it off, essentially. So it's just made it easier. Now I don't have to click and delete and click and cut. I can just drag it and sort of remove it and make my time shorter or longer. And I can do the same thing. I can drag it out, I can drag it in, I can drag it so that it's only showing the parts of the footage I actually want it to show. One thing you might want to do though, when you're making your cuts, is to make them less harsh, less obvious. Add some sort of transition in between them so it just feels a little bit less janky. Easy way to do that. Let's go back to this cut we made at the beginning of the video. We're going to zoom in on this guy, and what you can see, oh, I've lost it. Here it is. Now, if I zoom in, what you can see, this cut doesn't actually roasting. You'll be able to take these principles and apply them regardless. So let's go over this channel. So what I could do here is if I hover over this clip, you can see on the right hand side, there's like a little white icon. I can grab this, click and drag it back, and let's drag it back to say like 20. And I can go to the other clip and then click and drag this to 20 as well. And what that's going to do now is when we play this video, there's going to be like a fade in and fade out in between these clips. Principles and apply them regardless. So that fade in wasn't really necessary for this particular video because I was just cutting out a little portion of silence. It'd probably make it too obvious that we're making a cut. But if you, for example, recorded an intro clip for your video and then you have your actual video, you might want to do like a fade in and out. You might want to do like a transition between your intro clip and your actual video, because just doing like what they call like a jump cut, so literally just like a cut like this, is going to feel a little bit harsh. And this is really useful when it comes to audio, because often if you're cutting out parts of your video, the audio is going to sound really weird, really janky in between your cuts. So the way you smooth that out is very similar to what we just talked about. You can hover over this audio clip, drag this in, and then hover over this one and drag that in as well. And we're going to have the audio, it's going to fade in and fade out just like the video did. Now, those are really basic fade transitions, but there are some more advanced transitions you can learn. So I'm going to show you one right now. Come over here, grab our razor tool. I'm going to make a cut like right here, and I'm going to make a cut like back here. And then we're going to delete this middle portion of video. So I'm going to come delete selected, drag these together. And the reason I'm doing that is because I want to show like a sort of more harsh transition. So if we have a look at this video, so again, we're looking in the preview window up here, you can see that it's kind of like on this screen and then it changes, right? So it's very harsh because like jumps to like this random portion of the screen. It goes from showing the channel, homepage and banner and me looking at the camera to like 1 second later, bam, me not looking at the camera. There's like a red box on the screen. There's like a completely different set of footage. So we might want to transition between that a little bit more smoothly, and we might want to do it in a slightly more fancy way than just dragging these handles to do like a fade in, fade out. The way you can do that is you're going to come up to the left hand side, click on the effects library, and then down here in toolbox, we're actually going to have a bunch of different transitions. So I can go to click here, video transitions, and let's do something kind of interesting. So let's do like a dip to color dissolve. So we'll click on this, we'll drag it over our cut, and this little white box is going to appear over top of our cut. We're going to let go. And now in between this cut, there's going to be like a little transition. So watch up the top right is basically well, so it dipped to black and white color, which is actually not what we want. I'm actually going to undo that and find another one. So let's go down here, for example, to iris, just because these are transitions you're probably never going to want to use, but it's going to make it really obvious what a transition does for the sake of this tutorial. So let's grab like a cross iris. So I'm going to click on this. I'm going to drag it over our cut like so, let go. And now we've got this like little white rectangle over our cut. What that's going to look like is going to add this like cross iris transition between these two clips. So let me play this and watch the preview window. Here is basically, well, do you see that like cross transition into the next clip? It looks a little bit gross. You would probably never actually use that transition in a video, but I just wanted to show you that one because it's really obvious to show you what a transition would do. Maybe a nicer transition you could use, for example, would be like a blur dissolve. So let me click on this thing. I'm going to right click on it. And I'm just going to delete this transition and let me grab like a blur dissolve and drag that over my clip. And now let's have a look what that looks like. On a crappy video idea is basically, well, you see it did like a blur dissolve into the next clip. Kind of cool, right? And you can also do the same thing with your audio. So you can come into audio transitions and you could do a crossfade at 3 decibels, for example, which is just going to make the audio blend a little bit more seamlessly into itself. So I'm going to click on that, drag it over the audio, and now our audio is going to fade in and fade out a little bit less harshly. Idea is basically, well, most kills in Modern Warfare. Kind of cool, right? Now, one thing you can do, kind of similar to how we were dragging handles before around the effects, is we can actually drag our transitions to make them longer and shorter. So this transition right now is pretty quick if we play it. Is basically, well, let's say we wanted it to take a really long time. I could hover over the edge of it, click and drag them out, and now it's going to be a really long blur dissolve. Watch this. Title and thumbnail. Yeah. On a crappy video idea is basically the YouTube equivalent of polishing. Most kills in Modern Warfare. Right, kind of gross. Something you might want to do though is actually make it a little bit shorter. So I can click and drag, make this really quick. So something just like in here. And now let's listen to what this sounds like, or watch what it sounds like. Watch what it looks like. Third time lucky. Is basically, well, most... There we go. So that's how we can start doing basic cuts and then transitioning between those cuts a little bit more smoothly. Last thing I want to show you before I end this particular part of the video is I need to show you how to actually save your project so you don't lose your progress. So you're going to come up to File here, then come down to Save Project, and just hit that. And now all of the edits that you've made on this particular video are going to be saved. You can close down DaVinci, open it up again later, and you're going to see our test project in our project window. Actually, let me show you. I'm going to close this. So if I close DaVinci, now I've opened it up again, you're going to see the project window you might remember from earlier, and you can see right here, test project, which is the project we're just working on. I can double click on that, and you can see it loads up my project, my timeline, the editing footage I just did, the cuts and transitions we just made. So you can basically close your project, come back so I can start exactly where I left off. And so the last thing I'll say before we end this is make sure you always save your project. I can't tell you how many times I've accidentally closed my computer or accidentally closed a program or my computer has crashed or whatever and I haven't saved my project and I've lost hours and hours of work. It literally makes you want to save your project, please. All right, so that's it for this one. Download DaVinci, have a play around with all the things I just showed you, start editing some videos, and then when you've mastered that stuff, we'll move on to some more advanced techniques. So I want to talk about syncing and linking. We've talked about basic cutting, but now let's talk about how we can disguise our cuts even further, especially if you've got like a voiceover or something like that. So let me show you, there's this bit of footage here where I'm mining a tree. I can't figure out how to run in this stupid game, so I'm walking around like a numpty. All right, forward, come on. So there's like a pause in here. I'm mining the tree, then I go silence, then, all right, forward. Now that silence doesn't really need to be there. The problem is if we just used our razor tool and just cut that out, it's going to kind of be harsh, right? Because it's going to look like this. Let's go through it frame by frame. So you can see as I'm going in slow motion, it's mining the tree, bam, it like just kind of teleports, right? So it's like a really kind of rough, harsh cut. So what we're going to do is we're going to cut the audio to remove the silence, but we're not going to cut the video. So let me show you how to do that. So let's go back and undo all of what we just did. Now let's like separate this section of our video. So I'm just going to like separate there and like cut here. All right, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna select these two clips now, right click, and then I'm just going to go to link clips and turn the check mark off. What this is gonna do is, in the past, if I just click on this video, grab it and drag it, the audio and the video move with me. So I'm gonna come in here and let's have a look at this portion of audio that we wanted to remove. Now that we've unlinked this, you can see I can click on my video and my audio doesn't select. I can click on my audio and my video doesn't select. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna grab my razor tool, I'm gonna come down to just my audio, I'm gonna click here, and what you can see, it's made a cut, but it's left my video uncut. Click on this, delete this, then grab my audio, drag it in to join it together, and then I'm just gonna trim off this last bit of video. I could actually just grab this and just drag it in like that. Now, if we watch this video back, I can't figure out how to run in this stupid game, so I'm walking around like a numpty. All right, forward, come on. You can see that I removed the bit of silence in the audio track, so I just kind of kept talking, but on the screen, on my video, because it wasn't cut, you can't really tell I've actually done some manipulation of audio here. And that's one of the reasons why it's so useful to record every little bit of media, whether it's your face cam or your video, your desktop background audio, your mic audio, your friend's audio in separate tracks. And now that I've done that, if I wanted to link these back up together, I just click and drag them all, right click, hit link clips. And now if I click and drag these, they're gonna all come together. So there are a ton of different use cases for this, but getting your head around linking and unlinking clips, especially when we're recording audio that has multiple different tracks, linking and unlinking becomes very, very useful. All right, so we've learned some pretty cool fundamental editing techniques that will allow us to manipulate our video pretty substantially. However, the more clicks you have to make in your timeline to make a certain edit, the more time it's gonna take you to edit. If it takes you a bunch of clicks, so if I have to like select a clip, come up, click on the razor tool, cut, then right click, then hit delete. If I'm making hundreds of cuts in my video, that adds up to hundreds and hundreds of clicks. So something you wanna do in editing is try to reduce the number of clicks you have to make, and a great way to do that is with keyboard shortcuts. So I want to show you some cool keyboard shortcuts to really speed up some of the editing tricks we've learned so far that I use all the time. So the first one is navigating around the timeline. So we've been using the minus and plus buttons to do that so far. But something that's really cool is if you hold Alt or Option on your keyboard and then scroll in or out, you can just really easily scroll in and out on your timeline like that. And really quickly, I can scroll out and then zoom in on this, and then I can zoom out there, come down here, zoom in here. Really, really cool. Use it all the time. Now, another thing I want to show you is if you want to play your video, instead of coming up in here and have to click play and stop, you can just hit spacebar. So I hit spacebar, video starts playing, hit spacebar again, it stops. Another really cool thing that I love is sometimes clicking and dragging your playhead around, you can't actually get the exact precision that you want. So you can use keyboard shortcuts to move your playhead frame by frame. So you can use arrow keys, or on my keyboard, it's actually set up with some hotkeys to use W and E. So if I hit these, if I hit the left arrow key, because I've set up custom keyboard shortcuts, it's W, I can hit it once, it moves the playhead one frame. Another one, one frame. Another one frame. I can hit it multiple times, move it multiple frames, and I can do the same with the right arrow key, or again on my keyboard, it's the letter E, and I can really position this playhead exactly where I want to position it. So I can position it right at the beginning of this, where these waveforms start. That's another one I use all the time when editing. Now, another thing we've talked about is cutting, right? So far we use the razor tool to make a lot of our cuts, right? Something you can do though, without actually going to the razor tool, is just move your playhead over the part where you want to cut and then hit S on your keyboard. And as you can see, it's just made a split for me. So I can move my playhead here, hit S, it makes a cut, which makes it so much easier for me to really quickly make cuts and delete things. Another keyboard shortcut I really, really love is the delete key. So normally if you're going to delete, we click on this, then we go delete selected. What I can do is just click on this, hit D on my keyboard, or backspace, or the delete key, and it's just going to delete it. And one other thing I really like is instead of having to then come over, click here, and then drag this together, what you can do is click into this empty space, and it's going to highlight it, and then hit the delete key again, so backspace, delete, or D on your keyboard, and it just automatically deletes that space and joins your footage together. And the final one, you remember we talked about syncing and linking footage. What you can do instead of having to highlight, right click, link, and unlink clips is instead of just clicking on a clip like this, which is going to select both of them, hold Alt or Option on Mac, and click on, say, video track, and you can see it's going to select just the video track instead of the audio track. So I can, for example, come click my razor tool and hold Alt or Option and click, and it's just going to cut my video. Alt or Option again, click, just going to cut my video. I'm going to come here, delete this, and you can see it's just deleted my video without impacting my track below it. So it's a quick way to link and unlink clips there. Now, if you want to use the basic methods I've shown you so far, they're tried and true. They're a little bit more straightforward. You don't have to remember fancy keyboard shortcuts. Great, go for it. But as you get the hang of this, and you'll probably see me doing this throughout the following editing tutorials, if you learn how to use keyboard shortcuts, you practice remembering what those keyboard shortcuts are, it can really speed up your editing journey. All right, so now I want to talk about one of my favorite things in editing, which is animation or using keyframes. That's going to seem overwhelming and intimidating for a lot of people, but I promise you it's actually a lot simpler than you think. You're just going to follow me step by step. So I have on my timeline right now a little icon of the DaVinci Resolve logo with just a regular black background. Now, let's say I want to animate this logo to start at one side of the screen and then move to the other side of the screen. How would I do that? Well, the first thing I might want to do is I might want to actually position it where I want it to start. So I'm going to come and actually click on this little box here with like rectangles around it called transform. Click on that, and it's going to add little handles and a box around this icon. What I can do is I can click on these handles and like drag the box in and out to make it smaller and larger. And I can also click on it and drag it to one side of the screen like that. However, though, I can come back and click on these to turn them off. All I've done though is I've just moved the DaVinci Resolve logo from one side of the screen to the other. So if I come down to my timeline and hit play, you can see it just stays there. It doesn't actually do anything. So how do we get it to move? Well, think about a flip book, right? You know those flip books where you could draw a circle on one page and you move it slightly on the next page and move it slightly on the next page. And you do it like 100 times, then you flip through the book with multiple pages and it like makes a little moving animation. Editing is kind of like that, but we use frames. The problem is with the flip book is that in order to say, for example, get the DaVinci logo to move from one side of the screen, we would have to draw it on this side, then we have to go to the next page and draw it there, then go to the next page and draw it there, then draw it there, then draw it there, and like draw a bunch of pages until eventually we'd flip through the book and then we'd kind of move like jankily across the screen. But editing is really cool because there's this thing called keyframes. So I want you to imagine for a moment like a magic flip book. Imagine a flip book that has like 100 pages and you could draw the DaVinci Resolve logo on the left-hand side of the page on the first page of the book, and then you just go to the end of the book and you draw it on the right-hand side of the page, and then imagine this magic flip book would then automatically start drawing the circles slightly to the right and 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 slightly to the right on every page throughout the flip book until it had basically automatically animated the logo going from the left-hand side to the right-hand side. That's basically what we can do with editing using what's called keyframes. So for example, let's put our logo back over here on the left hand side, and then let's come to the inspector and click up here. This is where we're going to be able to add keyframes to basically start doing these cool animations. So over here we can see this one right here, position. This position field is where we're going to be able to control where the thing we're editing is actually located on the screen. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come across to position and click on these diamonds here, and that's going to turn on keyframes for this item. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to move my playhead to the end of this clip, and I'm going to click, well, I need to move it just a little bit to the right so I have something to inspect still. And then I'm going to click and drag this logo over to the right hand side. And what you can see is this kind of like red lines appearing, and it's showing me that it's automatically interpolating, which is called like drawing little keyframes and animating it so this logo is going to move smoothly across to the right hand side. So if I come back to the start now and I actually play this, you can see that the logo is moving slowly but surely to the right hand side. And again, what's really cool about this is back in the old days, people used to have to manually animate every single step to get it to move slowly. Now all you have to do is set the start point and the end point, and the editing program is going to automatically animate everything in between. Pretty cool, right? This circle moves pretty slowly though, right? So how would we actually move this up? How would we make this faster? Well, at the moment, we've added one keyframe to the left-hand side at 0 seconds, and then one keyframe to the right-hand side at 10 seconds. That means it's going to take 10 seconds for this logo to slowly animate its way across the screen. If we wanted to make this faster though, what we would do is we would add our final keyframe, our end keyframe at say 5 seconds instead of 10 seconds. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move to the end, and you'll see when I'm over a keyframe, this little diamond thing here is going to go red. So as I'm moving this around, you can see there's no red, but then when I move it over a keyframe, it goes red. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to remove this keyframe by clicking on it. You can see that our circle is going to jump back to the start, and instead I'm going to go to the middle of our clip, and we've got keyframes enabled, and I'm going to drag this over to the other side. So if we play this now, what you're going to see is happening, our circle moves a bit faster and it makes itself to the other side of the screen about 5 seconds in. And we can make this even faster. And a way to actually visualize this is you can come and click on this little icon here, and you can see these two little white dots. These are our keyframes. So you can see there's one here and one here. So if I move this here, I turn it off, you can see it gets removed. I can make this circle move even faster. Let's drag our playhead back to right at the beginning, and then we're going to drag this across like so. You'll be able to see circle moves a lot faster now, right? So keyframes are really cool because not only can you animate the positioning of an object, but you can really easily adjust the speed of the animation just by moving your keyframes closer or further apart. But let's say we wanted to do a slightly more advanced animation. Let's say we wanted to have our logo move from the left-hand side of the screen to the right-hand side of the screen, and then have it move to the top of the screen. What we would do is we would just add another keyframe. We've got one keyframe here. You can see them represented on this graph. We could go a little bit further forward now, and we could drag our logo up to the top of the screen, and will happen now, if I go back to the start, it's going to move to the right, and it's going to slowly move up to the top to our other keyframe here. Now at the moment we've only been playing with position, but we can actually stack keyframes on top of each other to do multiple different sorts of animations at the same time. So I've only been moving this logo around the screen, but let's say I wanted to make it get larger and smaller. I could come to the beginning here, and I'm going to go up to my transform inspector window up here. I'm going to go to zoom, and I'm going to click on this to turn on keyframes. Now at the beginning, what I'm going to do is I can drag this smaller and larger like you would have seen, but instead of just clicking and dragging like we have been, you can actually edit the values over here. So let's do this 0.2, so it's quite small, and then let's move our playhead to the end of the animation, which is here, and then let's create another keyframe, and let's make it 0.4 in size. So it gets a lot larger now, right? So now what's going to happen, it's going to start out small, and then it's going to gradually get larger and gradually animate itself until it hits our final keyframe. So let's actually look at what this looks like. So it moves, and it gets gradually larger until it hits the end. Let's do one more kind of interesting animation just to spice things up a bit. So let's move our playhead back to the start, and then let's go back to our transform here, and let's go to rotation angle. Let's make the logo spin. So I'm going to come here, and again, same as we've done before, we're going to turn on keyframes, then I'm going to drag this over to, say, let's go to here, and I'm going to come back to rotation angle. Again, you could click on this and you could drag it around like this, or controls over here in the inspector. So I'm just going to use the controls for the moment. I'm going to spin it around like that. So I've added 2 keyframes now on my rotation. So let's have a look at what our logo actually does if I play this video. It spins and then gets larger. Pretty cool, right? Now there are so many different things you can do in here. You can play around with the pitch to make it like tilt and like warp. You can play around with the yaw, which will make it tilt and warp but in a slightly different direction. But the most important thing from this lesson is not for you to understand like the different types of animations and effects you can actually do. It's more about understanding how keyframes work. Because if you can understand that, you'll understand like how 30 or 40% of video editing works. Let's play around with actually doing something a little bit maybe more practical, like zooming in on something, right? That's something you'll do pretty frequently. Something small on the screen you want to highlight to viewers, guide their eyes in that direction, you might want to zoom in on it. So let's grab this bit of video footage. I'm just going to drag it straight into the timeline like so. Now that I've dragged this in, you can see there's kind of like some black bars around the edges. It's been scaled really, so I'm just going to click on the edges of these boxes here, just drag this out so it actually fills up the full screen. You can see I'm trying to highlight this particular video. Now I've got like this red rectangle around it, which is kind of cool, but it'd be even cooler if maybe we could zoom in and show this thumbnail in more detail. detail to our viewers. We can do that using keyframes. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on this particular video here. Again, we're going to make sure our inspector over here is opened. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to where I first add this box. I think it's about here. Yep. So I start adding the box here. We're going to try and zoom in. So we're going to add a zoom keyframe, right? So I'm going to add one keyframe here because this is where I want the zoom to start. I want to start fully zoomed out. Now let's move our playhead a little bit to the right. I'm just going to use my arrow keys, right? To like here and add another keyframe. We can do that by clicking and then just moving the perspective of this, and it's going to zoom in and zoom out. And you can see I can now zoom in on my footage. The problem I'm having though is it's not zooming in where I want it to zoom in. So what I need to do, I'm just going to turn this keyframe off for a second, is I need to add a position keyframe because I want to zoom in on a specific position of the screen. So I'm going to use zoom and position keyframes. So let's go back to where our first keyframe is. Little cheat code on how to do that. You can click the arrow and it'll just jump back to where your first keyframe is. And what we're also going to do is we're going to turn on position keyframes, right? So we're going to turn that on at the point where we want to start manipulating the position of the screen. Now let's move to the part where we want to actually zoom in. Let's say it's here. And now let's add our zoom and position keyframes. So we're going to add another zoom keyframe, a position keyframe here. Let's zoom in. Let's say we want to be that far zoomed in. And then we're going to go to our position and we're going to grab our X axis and move it over like so. Now, if we actually watch this animation back, here's what it will look like. Yeah. Why? Well, we've zoomed in and we've adjusted the position to be able to showcase the thing I'm talking about most clearly. Now that zoom was a little bit slow. So as we've talked about, you can change the positioning of keyframes to make it a little bit faster. So let's go back to here. I'm going to turn these keyframes off and let's go back with our playhead. Go back to like, maybe here is when I want the zoom to actually end. So let's add our keyframes back in. I'm going to zoom in, move our position across so it's centered, and then let's see how that looks. See, it zooms in a lot faster. Pretty cool, right? Now, the last thing we're going to do is we're going to need to actually zoom out on this footage. Now, this is where a lot of people make mistakes with keyframes. So I want to show you something. What a lot of people do is, let's say they want to zoom out of the screen about at this point here. They'll add keyframes in, and then they'll just zoom out, right? So they'll bring this back to 0. By the way, a little shortcut, you can just double click on the letter here to bring it back to what it was before. So if I change the position on this, I can double click on position and it's just gonna center it. And then I could bring my zoom back out to where I want it to be, which is here. And people will be like, okay, well, I've now added my zoom in and I've added my zoom out. The problem is, if we look at our graph here, what it's doing is zooming in and then it's just gonna start gradually zooming out because there's no keyframe to actually keep it in the position we want it to stay in. So let's go back and remove those keyframes we just added. We've done our zoom in here. Let's go to the part where we want it to zoom back out. What we're going to do is add a zoom and position keyframe just to keep it in this position the whole time. And then we're going to go a few frames to the right, like here, and we're going to add another zoom and position keyframe. So now you can see I have these two keyframes here. We're going to leave this first one here. We're not going to touch that because this one is going to keep our zoom for the duration we want it to be zoomed in. We're just going to touch this other one here. So we're going to come across here and we're going to take our zoom length. We're going to adjust it. Let's just double click on the zoom, bring it back to 0, and just double click on position and bring it back like so. Now I do need to zoom in just a little bit just because this footage wasn't scaled properly. So like there, just to get rid of the black bars on the side of the screen. Can you see in the graph how it looks a bit different to the way it looked before? I'll show on screen how it looked before and I'll show you how it looked now. You can see how adding this extra keyframe in here has stopped it from gradually zooming out. So what our actual footage is going to look like, it's going to zoom in, and it's going to stay zoomed in until it gets to this portion back here with the presentation of this idea. And it's going to zoom back out to where it's supposed to be. And again, this principle applies no matter where you're adding keyframes, whether you're trying to rotate or zoom or crop. You need to remember, if you add two keyframes of different values, your editing program is going to animate the space in between those two different values to gradually manipulate whatever it is you're editing to meet that second value. So if you want to prevent it from doing that, if you want to hold the screen in a certain place, you need to add a hold keyframe to stop it from moving until it hits that hold keyframe and then zoom back out to, in this case, a full screen video mode. But I do want to do something a little bit more advanced here. Let's say that I actually want to zoom in and then pan across a couple of videos. So I'm going to come back to my timeline. I'm going to move to this portion. And let's say I want to start panning, moving around the screen at this portion here. Now, as you might remember, we're going to add a keyframe to hold this position. And then what we're going to do is we're going to move to our next keyframe here, and we're going to move our screen around a little bit. So let's just like say move it across like that. So it's going to pan across those different videos, and then let's play that and see what that looks like. So it's going to zoom in like we've told it to. It's going to stay zoomed in until it hits our frame hold. Then it's going to pan across all the different videos. Good as a video idea. However, I have some problems with the and then when it hits the final keyframe here, presentation of this idea. It's going to zoom back out and center itself like we told it in the beginning. Pretty cool, right? They are a little bit hard to get your head around, but just watch this video a couple of times, go into your editing program, play around with different keyframe animations, and very soon it'll become second nature. It'll become intuitive to you, and you'll be animating like a pro in no time. So now we've learned some of the very basics. We're going to learn some more basics that are going to allow us to get a little bit more creative, specifically in the visual department. So the first thing I want to show you is how to start adding overlays and things like actually on top of your footage beyond just, because the moment we just focused on like manipulating your existing footage, cutting it up, all that kind of thing. Now we're going to look at how to actually add things in. So the first thing that you're going to want to learn to do is come over to your timeline over here, and then you're going to right click on this section and then click add track. What you can see is this adds another track, essentially another place where you can place footage. And basically this allows us to then start adding in different media, clips, photos, etc. on top of our video footage. And I say on top of because that's basically how the tracks are ordered. So essentially we've got two tracks here, right? Let's say I grab this clip here and I drag it on top of this and put it in this top track. Now what you'll see is if I move my playhead over these clips, only the top clip is actually showing because it's on top of, it's over the top of these other two. Now if I move it down, you can see that it comes down below. So basically just think about tracks as if you're almost like stacking Lego bricks on top of each other. Like the one that's highest track is going to be the thing that's on top of everything else. So let's go and actually start adding some things. Let's say for example, I wanted to indicate something. Let's say I wanted to use an arrow or a circle or something. I'm just going to go to Google and I'm just going to type like a red arrow transparent. I'm going to go to images and I'm just going to find an image that's transparent. And one way you can do this is just go tools and then down in color, select transparent. And it's only going to show you things that are transparent. So I'm going to grab this first image. We're going to save image. And now let's go and grab this image. And what we're going to do is we're going to drag it and we're going to chuck it in the track that we just created. DaVinci lagging out, don't like us. So I'm going to just dump it right there. Now, if I zoom in on this, if I chuck this here, what you can see is we now have a big arrow up on our screen. And what I can do is using the keyframing that you learned about earlier, I can come and click on this and I might keyframe this down. Let's say we want to point at my health bar, which is right there, right? So I could position this, rotate it a little bit, bam, we now have an arrow pointing at my health bar. Like so. Now, just like we can animate zooms and pans and all that good stuff on our overlays and stuff using keyframes. So I can grab this image, for example, and I could set a keyframe here and I could go to the end here, add another keyframe. And let's say on this particular keyframe over here, I'm going to move it this way and I'm going to rotate it this way. So now if we watch this back, let me just turn off these handles so it's easier to see. We have our image and it's slowly animating as to the keyframes that we've set. Kind of looks like a clock. Now this particular arrow is very bright red, so it stands out really well. However, sometimes when you're using overlays, particularly like lighter colored overlays, like if you're overlaying white text on a relatively light background, it's going to be hard for them. They're not going to stand out very well. So some techniques I use pretty frequently to get things to stand out is firstly drop shadow. So what I want to do is click on this guy right here and I'm going to come over to my effects tab over here. So if you don't know how to get to that, just click on up here, effects. Then I'm going to go to filters over here inside of OpenFX. If you don't see it, just make sure you open FX and then you're going to go and type shadow and you can see we have a drop shadow. What you're going to do is you're going to grab that and drag it over the top of the arrow. And I don't know if you saw that right there. Let me undo. Can you see the arrow? It has like now a shadow around it, which just makes it stand out that little tiny bit more. Now what's cool is if we click on where we've added the shadow and up in the top right hand side, we've opened up our inspector. So again, you just click on, if you ever see something I have open that isn't open for you, just find the white tab tab and then just click on it and it'll open up. What you can do is you can go from video to effects, and inside of OpenFX, you can see that I've added this drop shadow, and I can turn it off and on, but I can also adjust the settings of it. So I can change the strength and make it a lot harsher, more subtle. I can change the angle, so I can change the angle of the drop shadow. I can change the distance, so I can have it be really far down or really close. A bunch of things you can play around with to make this really customized to your style and your brand. Now, let's say I didn't want to just have an arrow on screen. I also wanted to have text there. So what I can do is over in the left-hand side here, I can go from where I was in filters up to titles. And then from tiles, I'm just going to select, say, text plus. And what I can do, if I actually drag it above over here, you can see that it actually automatically creates a new track for me. So you can see it just created video track 3. And now what you can see is I have this text that has been created for me. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab this and I'm going to position it right where I want, which let's say I want to position it right about here, and we'll put it on a little bit of an angle. Now, let's say we particularly wanted this text to stand out. We could add a drop shadow like I just showed you, which would be cool and would work. However, let's try something a little bit different. Drop shadow is one way to make things stand out. The second most common way is using a stroke. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come and click on text here. Then I'm going to go up to make sure I'm on video, on title, and I'm in this text box here. Then what I'm going to do is come over to shading, and in shading, we're going to go to number 2. And what we're going to do is turn this checkbox on. This is going to enable a red outline right now, you can see, around our text. Now, I don't really want this to be red, so I'm going to do is scroll down in color, and I'm going to change this to black, and I'm going to change the thickness. We can make this quite thick. So I'm going to crank that like all the way up here, and you can see there's quite a solid black overlay around this text now. You can see before, after. Now, it doesn't make a huge difference on this particular clip, but if this was on a really light colored clip, let's say we drag it over here, for instance, and let's see if we can find something a bit lighter. Let's put our text in the sky here, just so I can show you what this might look like. Let's put it up here on the white clouds. So you can see without this on, it doesn't really stand out all that much, right? But when I put this on, now you can't miss it. Like, it very much stands out. And this is kind of a bit ugly, and there's a bunch of different things you can play around with inside of here to make it styled the way you want. But those are basically two of the main effects or techniques you'll use to make things stand out when they're kind of blending in with your background footage. Now, in cases like I've been showing you right now, I'm overlaying text or objects in a way that they become part of the background footage, right? I'm trying to show both the background footage and, in this case, the arrow at the same time. However, there might be moments where you kind of want to show the background footage, but you don't actually want people to look at it. You kind of just want it there as background footage. For example, maybe you're showing a title on screen. For example, I'll grab this guy, come across to text, and I'm going to customize this, hello world. And I don't really want people looking in the background right now. I just want them looking at the text. One technique that I really like is lowering the opacity of the background footage to make it darker. So let me show you what that looks like. Let me turn off this outline as well, just to show you how it makes this white text stand out a lot more, right? Let me actually just drag this box out so we got a little bit more room. If I come down to my background clip, which is right here, what I can do, I'm just going to cut the bit around my text. So I'm going to cut from here and cut here. I'm going to select the clip that is going to be underneath my text, the background footage underneath my text. I'm going to go to video, and I'm going to scroll down to composite here. And in composite, what I'm going to do is I'm going to just drag this opacity down like so. Now what you can see is the background footage has been darkened, but my text still stays the same brightness. And that means that if I wanted to, say, have like an intro card or text that I just want people to read, I don't really want them focusing on the background at that particular point, I can use this kind of effect and it looks really, really nice. Now, something I can also do is I can add transitions to this, because at the moment this is like gonna look a little bit harsh, right? So what I can do is I can add transition to this like I showed you earlier. I could grab, for example, the cross dissolve transition and put this here. And I could also use like a fade in on this by grabbing this handle and dragging in like I've shown you. And now it'll look like this. Okay, all right. See how it like gradually fades in and looks pretty slick? That's what you want. Just makes it feel a lot less clunky and amateur. Now, another technique you can use to make objects or effects you're overlaying onto the screen stand out more is a blur effect. So for example, if I grab this text and just duplicate it over here, let's cut up this piece of footage here, to isolate it from the rest of the background footage. Again, doesn't stand out as much. What I could do is I could add a blur on this. What you're going to do is go down to filters. And then what you're going to do is find this Gaussian blur filter right here. You're going to click on this, drag this across and drag it onto your background footage. And what you can see has happened is my background footage has now blurred out. I could also grab a transition, chuck this on top of that. And now what you'll see, if you watch this, is we'll go from footage that is unblurred to a blurry background with our hello world text on it. Now it's still a little bit bright, so we can actually start stacking these things on top of each other. So I could click on this, I could come across, I'm in the effects panel automatically. So I'm going to come across to video, come down to composite, change the opacity, and now I have blurred out background that's also darker. And now there's no way someone is going to miss my text. They're going to 100% focus on my text first and not going to get distracted by whatever's going on in the background. Now, you don't just have to use text or arrows or circles or whatever it is. You can get creative here, and this is where you can overlay and animate anything you want. Because again, remember, you can use keyframes to make the text or the arrows or whatever it is you're overlaying move around the screen however you want it. But using the techniques I've just showed you, no matter what kind of edit you're going for, you should always be able to make it stand out in the way you want. Because a big part of editing is directing your viewer's eye. It's making sure that they are looking at the thing they're supposed to be looking at. So if you're putting up text on the screen, you want them to be reading at that moment because it's really key to the story or your video. You don't want them distracted by the background footage. Now, I want to show you one more specific effect technique because this is something that I see a lot of people use and it can add some humor to your videos, and that is the shake effect. So let's say I wanted this text to shake. And a reason you might want, say, text to shake is if you're screaming or if there's something loud, having it shake along with the microphone peaking actually sounds kind of funny, comedic. You've probably seen this a million times. So what you can do is, again, in effects, we're going to come down to filters, and then you're going to type in this text bar camera shake, and you're going to see this one right here. So I'm going to grab this and drag it over the top of my text right here. Drop that on like so. Then now it's going to automatically take me to this effects panel, and you're going to see the camera shake effect is turned on. Now, if I play this back, what you see is my text is shaking around. And you can basically adjust all of these different sliders here to make it shake however you want. So for example, I could adjust the speed and turn that all the way up, and now it's going to shake a lot faster. I can adjust the motion scale, and now it's going to shake a bit more aggressively. I can adjust the motion blur, and now it's going to blur as it's shaking. Again, this is a really fun effect to add if someone's screaming or something aggressive is happening and you want to sort of exaggerate that. You can have the elements on screen shake along with whatever's happening. Now, those are some of my most commonly used effects, but there are so many different effects in DaVinci. You can just come over to effects, filters, and scroll through here, and you'll see there's a ton of different things you can play around with. I do want to show you two last things before we move on to the next portion of this lesson. They're not specific edits, but they are ways of applying specific edits more efficiently and effectively. Now, I'm just going to reduce my playback a bit just because it's being a little bit laggy for me. But let's say, for example, I wanted to apply, say, a blur effect to all of these different clips. Now, I currently have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 different clips here. I could go and manually grab my Gaussian blur and drag it onto each individual clip and then adjust the settings on the blur to be however I would like, to be more blurry or less blurry depending on my preferences. The problem is it's not very efficient. So something that is more efficient is we can use a thing called an adjustment layer. So if we come back to effects here and then we grab an adjustment clip, I'm actually going to drag this in on a new track above all the tracks I'm trying to edit. So it actually didn't drag it on a new track, so I'm going to add one, drag this up here. I'm just going to make the audio tracks a bit quieter and drag this down just so we can see a bit more of the video, what's going on. And what we're going to do is I'm going to grab this adjustment layer and drag it over all of my footage like this. Now, if we look at our footage, you can see that it hasn't actually done anything yet. But what I can do now, for example, is if I go to filters, I go to Gaussian blur and I put that on the adjustment clip, you can see that it blurs the footage underneath. And now, no matter where I go or what clip I go to on my timeline, as long as it is beneath my adjustment clip, the Gaussian blur effect is applied to it. So I haven't actually applied any effects to my raw clips. I've simply applied them to the adjustment layer. Now, the last thing I want to show you is a little bit more on the advanced side, but when you find a use case for this, it's going to like save you so much time. So let's say, for example, I have all of these different clips here, right? So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 clips. Let's say I wanted to add a gradual zoom in on all of these clips. So I wanted to go from here and start zooming in, and then to here, and then finish zooming in. The problem is I have all of these different clips, right? So if I was to try and do that smoothly, I'd have to go to this clip, and then I'd have to go to transform, and then I'd have to add a keyframe, and I'd keyframe it to this point, and I'd go to the next clip, and I'd add a keyframe, and then adjust it so that it transitions seamlessly between the last clip and the next one, and it's just like a pain in the ass. It's really fiddly. So what you can do instead is highlight all of these, right click, so you come up here, you click on new compound clip, and I'll just hit create. What you can see is it's now turned all of these into one clip. And now what I can do is just apply my effects to this entire clip. So for example, I could grab this, I could add my keyframe here, then go to the end, add my last keyframe here. So like zoom into there, right? Now, if we watch back this footage, it's going to gradually zoom in as we go until we reach our final zoomed in level that we've applied back here. And this is really useful when you're trying to apply one overarching effect to a group of clips, adding them all to a compound clip and then just adding a big fade in or fade out to the audio of the compound clip just makes things so much easier. So bunch to take in. Feel free to watch this multiple times and play around with all the things we talked about in this lesson. Create some new tracks, add some transparent PNGs and animate them around the screen. Adjust their shadows and strokes to make them stand out more. Add a blur or decrease the opacity of the background footage to make your overlay stand out more. And experiment with adding those effects not just to the base footage, but to an adjustment layer. Lastly, if you're trying to add keyframes, fade-ins, fade-outs to a large swath of clips, you can experiment with using a compound clip to do it a lot more efficiently. And that's it for this lesson. All right, so we've learned how to add things like overlays and text and manually keyframe animate them over our footage. That's all well and good, and that is something that you'll probably use more than any other type of overlay animation. However, you might have seen overlays on screen that basically look like cutout footage. Maybe I'll show some examples on the screen right now. And these can't be done with keyframes. They can't be done with PNG images. They're done by actually overlaying video footage on top of your base footage. And let me show you how to do that. So first thing we're going to do is add a video track, and I'm going to show you two different things. So the first one I'm going to do is show you how to add like an overlay on top of a video. So for example, I'm just going to grab this clip and drag it up here. Let's say I wanted to apply this sort of rainbow pulsing effect over my video footage. What I do is I click on this, and then kind of like we talked about earlier when you're making your base footage darker, what you're going to do is come down to composite, and then you're going to decrease the opacity on this guy until it's like as bright as you want. Now I'm just going to add like a slight fade into this, and then if we watch our footage back, what you'll see
wood in each tree. It's like mining shrubs. All right, come on.
Now I have this rainbow pulsing effect playing in the background. Now you can do that with so many things, but that doesn't really help us when we're trying to overlay a specific thing on part of the screen. So let's grab this video of Travolta. You know, he's just kind of looking around trying to figure out what's going on. The problem is if I try and just use my opacity to edit this, it's going to decrease the opacity of Travolta himself, right? So what I want is I want to decrease the opacity of just the green area and keep Travolta the same level of opacity. And we can do this using what's called chroma keying or green screen. So what you're going to do, make sure your clip's selected that you want to edit, then come down to Fusion. Now this is going to look like a whole new tool, and it kind of is, but don't worry, it's not too scary. We can figure this out pretty quickly. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to go to this media in node right here, this one. You're going to click on it, and then you're going to go Shift Space. That's going to bring up this little window right here. And then in this window, I'm just going to type keys. I'm going to come up here and click on the Delta key option and hit add. I'm going to come to this little eyedropper tool. I'm going to click and hold, and I'm going to drag it over the green. Now you want to make sure you drag it over the green, because if I drag it over the guy, it's going to like try and key out his face. I'm going to drag it over the green, hit release on that. And now if I come back to my edit page, what you'll see is the green is gone, and I now just have this clip of the guy overlaid on top of my screen. Now, one thing you might notice right here is if I kind of drag this down, this like kind of green halo outline around him still, you can fine tune that with this gain slider here. So I'm going to grab the gain slider and drag it this way. You can see that I can kind of get rid of that. Now it's turning a little bit purple if I go too much, but if I go about here, that looks pretty good, right? So you can see there's not really that green outline around him anymore. So I go back to my edit page, you can see it looks pretty damn good. Now all I have to do is position this wherever it is that I want to position him. All right, let's say I want to put him over here. And there we go. And you can do this with any type of green screen. Now, to find green screens, you can literally just go to YouTube or to Google and just type in whatever you're looking for, followed by green screen, and then just download that. So for example, if I just type in like free download green screens and come into say this website, again, there's so many of them. You can see this website alone has over 2,500 green screens that you can just click on and download. And that is pretty much how you add those videos or overlay-esque looking effects to your videos. So one thing a lot of YouTube videos include are vocals, a voiceover, like talking to camera, like I am right now to you, or just a voiceover that goes over the top of B-roll or footage or something like that. And making that sound crystal clear, even if you have a good quality microphone, a lot of people struggle with it. So what I want to show you today is some basic audio editing that'll make your voiceover sound a bit better. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to grab my clip, which I will chuck into my edit tab right here. So this is just a raw audio clip. I might boost the volume of this because